Welcome to this episode of Better Life Today. What comes to mind when you think of the word mission? For me, I think of being a child in Sabbath school and being told what missionaries are doing out in the field, maybe in Africa or India. Other people, me included, think about the mission of our own backyard and all the things that we could be doing for Jesus. I love the word mission. And my guest today is Fletcher Grahn. And you, as it happens, are a missionary. So welcome to the program. I'm so excited to hear about how God has been leading in your life. So welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your background and what brought you to where you are today?
Well, it all began in Wisconsin back in 1962. I was born in Stoughton, and my family, it was basically fractured from the very beginning. My brother and I were shipped around like FedEx packages between family members. We would go to our mother's parents in Maine often. My parents divorced by the time I was about 5 years old. And then we would go back between my mother and then my grandparents and back and forth and back and forth. So it was pretty unstable.
Yeah.
But my mother's parents happened to be Seventh-day Adventist. And my grandfather was a deacon, head deacon at the church.
Okay.
So one of the things that we would do is the old slide projectors.
Right.
We'd get to see the mission spotlight at home the Friday night before everybody else got to see it at church.
Yeah.
So in all of that, God planted a seed in me. But when I came back to my parents, whoever I would stay with, my mother or my father, it was back in the world. So it was this back and forth between Christianity and the world basically won.
So it's almost kind of like that same slide projector where you just have mission, life, all these different things.
Right.
Can be a little disconcerting. Yeah.
Once I graduated high school, I entered the Army. By then, I was pretty well addicted to drugs and alcohol.
Oh, okay.
I got out in a little under 3 years, and that just kept going for most of my life. About late 1980s, I had this moment where all of a sudden I just had this severe impression I had to be baptized out of nowhere. So I went to the church that I could find nearest and told the pastor, I need to be baptized.
And you had not been involved in church at all this whole time.
No. So I don't remember specifically, but it happened very rapidly, and I was baptized. And through that, I started going to church, and some people introduced me to this vegetarian restaurant in Madison, Wisconsin, Country Life.
Okay.
So I met my good friends, the Crarys there.
Okay.
And that's kind of what brings me here today.
Yes.
Roundabout. But that didn't solve the seed issue. It still was a battle for years. I left the church, and I did everything I could to burn it out, dig it out, crush it, anything I could do. And my life was pretty much a train wreck. And then in 2006, God finally got through to me. If you remember Darfur.
Yes.
It was about 2005, 2006 that the news of Darfur started to come out. And I was sitting in my cubicle at work, and I was a little irritated that the United States government wasn't doing anything. And then I realized that I was sitting in my chair not doing anything either. And I think that's where God started to talk to me, that I wasn't happy where I was. And before the end of the year 2006, I lost a close relative, I lost my job, and I was sitting there and I had to decide what I was going to do. And it occurred to me that I'm not finding happiness anywhere in this world. If I'm going to find it, I'm going to find it with God, or it doesn't exist. And that's when I made the decision that I was going to follow Jesus from then on.
And that following Jesus meant getting up and actually moving.
It took a lot. I had a house at the time. I got a subsequent job, and it was a contract. And that whole time I was trying to sell the house and join Adventist World Aviation, which was an organization that I had read about. And with my military background in aviation, I thought that that would make a good fit. So we went for a year and a half, 2 years, trying to sell the house, never sold. But during that time, I had lost the second job and then decided to go to Andrews and get my A&P license. So in that time, I lost the house. I had to declare bankruptcy, and I was basically, it was missions or bust.
Really?
with
So
AWA.
a lot of us find ourselves in that moment where we feel like we're at this decision point and we're unhappy with what's going on, but so many of us just stay in that. And if it sounds to me like God kept working with you and on you, and you actually did that step though, where you made a decision to actually start unsettling and moving yourself in a new direction, and that's not an easy thing. So what allowed you to be in that mindset where was it just feeling like you were at rock bottom, or was it more than that? What gave you the ability to just throw it all in toward Jesus?
The Friday before school started at Andrews, I received a call from a contracting firm wanting to offer me a job. And the finance I needed for school hadn't been fully approved yet, and we had an appeal in. But I had to sit and think about that. Was I going to take that, or was I going to move ahead with this? And I thought for a few seconds, and then I told them, I'm sorry, but I just retired.
Wow, that's hard.
And the following week, the appeal was approved, and I had full funding for the school. So I have been working. It's just in your heart that, I mean, I've sat in the cubicle, I've sat in the job, but I've spent my whole life for me, and I can't do that anymore. I just want to live my life for other people, because one of those moments in the Darfur time was that I've spent my whole life it's so selfish, and it didn't make me feel very good about myself.
Right. So you're at Andrews now. How long were you there?
Well, the program for A&P is 2 years.
Okay,
So
and what is AMP?
It's airframe and power plant.
Okay,
So it's maintenance for aircraft.
okay,
So I'm now licensed for that. I used to be a licensed inspector as well,
okay.
but not anymore. After that, I went through training with AFM there in Berrien Springs for deployment for missions, but there were some changes in AWA at the time.
Okay, and AFM is Adventist Frontier Missions,
Adventist
correct?
Frontier
Okay.
Missions, yep. So over time, the project that I was assigned to sort of just crumbled. The two pilots that were with it eventually left for different reasons, and it left a mechanic with nothing to, nobody to fly planes.
Right, you need to support some airplanes and some pilots, right?
So while visiting my friends, the Craries, when they were living in Tennessee at the time, they introduced me to the president of OCI, which is Outpost Centers International, and they told me about a project in Tanzania. They had an aircraft that needed to be assembled. At the time, I wasn't sure how I'd be able to fit it into my work with AWA, but after I left AWA, I got in contact with them again, and they said the flight still needed to be worked on. So that was my introduction to Kibadula, and I flew there for 5 months, my first trip there in March of 2012 to start the project.
And Kibadula, tell me about Kibadula.
Kibadula is 4,776 acres that was owned by a gentleman and his wife. His wife happened to be an Adventist. And when he decided to leave the country back to South Africa, he donated it to the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Okay.
Now, the Adventist Church didn't know what to do with 4,776 acres. So they contacted another mission down in Zambia called Riverside. And they sent people up, and they started what is now Kibadula and the ministries that they have there. There are a primary school, an agriculture school, school of evangelism. There's a wellness center. We have health evangelism. We have a print center. We employ over 20 lay evangelists throughout the country. And then Cuba has also built over 1,000 one-day churches and schools throughout
Wow.
the country.
And when did they receive the property?
I believe it was 1986 or so,
Okay.
in that time frame.
And when did you first arrive there?
I arrived there in 2012.
Okay.
So they'd gone along quite a ways by
Right.
then. So,
And your purpose in going there was to assemble an airplane. That doesn't sound like an easy job to me.
considering at the time there's no electricity,
Okay.
okay, they're completely off the grid. We had a generator we could run to operate some power tools when we needed. And a friend put a solar panel up so I could have some lighting in the tool portion of the hangar. But they have two hangars, very nice hangars. They have their own runway. And they've had an aviation program for several years. They had another aircraft, a two-seater. They wanted a larger one built to expand on that.
Okay.
So they'd use that two-seat aircraft by the same manufacturer for several years. So they had started to put the other aircraft together, but the person who was doing it, he's a pilot mechanic, but they asked him to become the director. So there went all of his time.
Right.
That's a full-time job times 10. So I got there, it was partially built, but I asked him, how long do you think it's going to take to build this? He said, 3 to 5 months. So I scheduled 5 months. I came.
So you were thinking this was kind of a short-term project. I'm going to put together an airplane and then I'm going to move on to whatever God has next for me.
Right.
Okay.
So that didn't turn out to be long enough, but it gave me enough time to be able to put information together about what was needed. And then I came back to the United States. I did some contract work in aviation and then prepared to get all the whatever was needed, the components ordered and everything else. And then went back about 18 months later, and this time for a full year.
Okay.
So I got it to the point where it was not assembled, but completed, and the components taken apart and painted. And it was ready to reassemble and then get it ready to fly. Later that year, I brought a friend from Michigan, another A&P mechanic, and he helped to get it assembled, and we had our first flight in 2015.
And what was the purpose of the plane? What was the goal, the usage goal?
Originally, they used the plane to do medical outreach and things, but this is more so because the clinics in the country have started to expand throughout the country, so there's not as much need anymore. But the trip into Dar es Salaam can be quite dangerous. It's long, 10 to 13 hours, and the roads and the traffic is it's difficult, and you see wrecks, semis, buses, all everywhere.
And that was the main route that
It can help.
before the airplane. That is what they were driving. How often would they have to make that trip?
We have people that go at least once a month.
Okay.
You can take the bus, which it's much cheaper, but we also take vehicles, and that's another issue because the expense of that, because Kibidu owns the vehicles and the cost per kilometer that is needed for that. So the airplane would be a rapid in and back,
Right.
and be able to do it safely without the roads, and then be able to function about the same cost, but without the same danger.
Right. So save time. It's a safety issue as well.
Right.
All right. So at this point, you've put the plane together, and was it used the way it was expected to be used, or did that usage expand?
Well, at the time we finished it, we were still looking for a pilot.
Oh, okay.
and
That's a necessary
and someone to
component
run
as
the
well.
aviation program. And unfortunately, we still haven't found anybody for that.
Okay.
So we're looking at different options, and we had actually had someone who was willing to come in and was looking to buy it, which would help because of all the advancements on the farm side. That would be very useful at this point in time to be able to invest those funds back into the mission itself.
And tell me about that. What is the mission of the farm? What do you do in that community?
Okay. When I first arrived, there was about 200 to 300 avocado trees.
I love avocados, so you got me right there.
There we go. And we had several varieties, and we would just simply, people on staff would eat them. We had thought about maybe expanding a little bit, and when I was there, my second trip, we planted 5,000 trees with the idea that we'd sell them in local markets. Since then, the decision was made to make it an industry, to be a source of income for all the rest of the mission. So in that time, since my last trip in 2017 and the one I just got back from in 2020, 21 and 22, they've planted 70,000 trees.
70,000 trees.
70,000
That's a lot of avocados.
They've built a pack house. They've gone from 1 dam to 2 and are building a 3rd dam now.
Okay.
And we are exporting avocados to Europe, and we just found that we have somebody received avocados from us in India. So right now we're producing about 1/10 of the orchard, and we shipped about 286 tons of avocados.
Did I hear that right? You have 70,000 trees, and you're only using 1/10 of the property? Is that what I heard?
No, we have 70,000 trees, and only about 1/10 of the trees are fully mature and fully producing.
Wow.
So we're looking for probably about 100 shipping containers per year. And then we not only ship our own, we pack for other growers locally. And avocados are becoming a hot commodity as far as Tanzania growers are concerned.
Right.
And another thing that we do is that we create seedlings, and we sell the seedlings to other growers. And last year we sold, I believe, about 200,000 seedlings.
Wow. So this is impacting that whole community. I mean, it almost sounds like you're raising up. This is Tanzania, the whole country, as far as what they're able to produce worldwide.
Kibadula tries to impact lives, and I've never seen anything like it. It's so comprehensive. It goes from the children to the adults. The farm, while we're planting, can employ up to almost 500 people. When we get to 100% production, we're looking at probably having to have another packing plant on top of the one we already have. And the amount of people that we can just help them have a better life.
Right. So how does this, I mean, you're growing an industry, selling avocados. How does this mesh with evangelism? How do those end up tying together?
Well, the funds from the avocados will hopefully in the future do a great deal more of supporting the ministries of Kibadula, plus helping to start other ministries elsewhere.
Right.
We have people coming from all over the world into Kibadula and looking at our production and how it works. And in our offices, we have a whole bunch of Christian materials on the shelves that we like to share with people. The people who work there, we have prayer with them in the morning, have a short worship with the teams when they come in. We've had busloads of people coming in and touring the facilities. And there's a government-produced video out now where a good portion of their content, aerial video, is taken at Kibadula. The Jason Fournier, who's the director of the farm now, he's interviewed in that. And just recently he was interviewed, or the head of the Department of Agriculture in Tanzania
Right.
itself.
Right,
So,
I mean, you have a successful industry, and that creates a level of influence, and it's a positive influence, so it draws people to look at it and see what they can learn. What else do you grow?
what else do we grow? We grow young people. The primary school has, they have their own farm that helps to feed them, to provide their meals during the day. But one of the advantages that our students have is they learn English beginning in primary school.
Okay,
On the national level, they start teaching the children in high school. So that gives them advantage, and they're introduced to Jesus Christ
right, right,
at an early age. Now, the School of Agriculture is where, if you want to go on to education, you take a national test after grade school. If you fail, you're done. So the School of Agriculture provides students who have failed their test a second means of providing for themselves and
Right.
their families. They learn agriculture, they can learn carpentry, and tailoring. So it used to be a 2-year program, but now it's 3, and they're actually going back and starting to try to re-educate and help them increase their abilities, like from primary where they failed, to help to re-educate them and bridge that gap that
Right.
they had.
right,
So it's all trying to provide for the people to have good lives. That's what Jesus did.
right,
Okay, he healed them. Okay, then when they could trust him because they knew that they had their best interest in heart, then he could teach them the gospel.
Right.
And then the students at the agriculture school, they're taught the gospel as well. And when I was here this last trip, there were 2 of the young people who were baptized, one of the young men and one of the young women. Now the young lady, she's from a Muslim family. Now Tanzania is predominant, well, it's half Muslim and half Christian.
okay,
I mean, you have witchcraft and that sort of thing as well. But we know that it can be difficult for someone in a Muslim family when
Certainly,
they convert to Christianity. So she made a very brave decision, and we were praying that her family as well is introduced to Jesus and they'll accept him as well.
right. So you have another trip planned. In fact, you're starting, it's not a short journey. You're heading that direction starting this next weekend. How long have you been in the service, and what is your role now?
Well, I've been working with Kibadula for 12 years,
Okay.
Through 2017 on the aircraft. My last trip was to fill in for their accountant who was out on maternity leave having a baby, young baby girl.
Right,
So I was there for 4 months, from September to January of this year. And going forward, they'd like me to come and work in the farm portion, doing administrative and accounting work for there, because they've lost 2 of their staff members there,
Right.
and help to fill in for what they would normally be doing.
right,
So my objective, or the objective, is to raise the support, because this is all going to be donor supported. And then as soon as that's done, and as soon as a couple of other challenges that are taken care of, that need to be taken care of, and then go from a temporary or short-term missionary to moving to Kibadula full-time, long-term.
wow. So what a journey God has had you on. I mean, it's an amazing story, and I just wonder if you were speaking to somebody that was in a similar situation, just whether they're feeling hopeless or wondering, where does God want me? What words of encouragement, looking back, I mean, you first started there working on an airplane, and now God has you on a completely different track. What would you say to somebody who's in that same place wondering, what does God have in store for me?
My life was a mess, an utter mess. But in all of it, God gave me a wide variety of skills and exposure to different things, which are becoming useful in his work. I think of the story of the gentleman who's let down through the roof when Jesus is speaking. And when Jesus sees them, the first thought is, well, he's going to heal them. But he says, no. He says, I forgive you. I mean, he knows what's in the heart.
Right.
And that's what I needed. And then he can heal us. But that's the real healing, is the heart.
Right.
And especially coming from a broken family, I don't trust easily. So that's been a difficult thing for me. But Jesus is just showing me time and time again that he's trustworthy. So that's, to me, that's what faith is.
Amen.
It is trusting that not only can he do the miracle, he wants to do it.
Absolutely. Well, Fletcher, I am very thankful that you joined us today. We wish you all the best as you head back. There's nothing like being in God's service, and I just appreciate what you're doing for the family of God. And folks, we all have an opportunity to step back. We're all broken. To step back and just let God do what he will do with us. We'll put some contact information up. So if you have any more questions about the ministry there in Tanzania, please reach out to them. There are ways you can partner with them. God has a plan for each of us. And like I said, we're all broken, and God doesn't care about that because he sees us as children, and he is ready to use us. So just rest in that, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of Better Life Today.